What if the biggest fracture in the modern royal family wasn't caused by the press, the palace, or public pressure, but by something said in private, behind closed doors, when no one else was listening? She told me I didn't need my brother anymore, that I only needed her. That's the line Prince Harry allegedly can't forget. Not shouted, not screamed, said calmly, repeated softly, and according to him, it changed everything. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. Think about that for a second. A family already scarred by loss. Two brothers bound by tragedy. A lifetime of shared pain, shared duty, shared survival. And then, one sentence that quietly begins to pull them apart. Most people assume the fallout between Harry and William was inevitable. Different personalities, different paths, different futures. But Harry now suggests something far more unsettling. That the distance wasn't accidental, that it was encouraged, that it was shaped, step by step, conversation by conversation. And the timing of this revelation matters. Harry is 41 now. Not the angry, defensive prince we saw years ago. Not the man lashing out at the world. This is an older Harry. A tired Harry. A reflective Harry who has lived with the consequences of his choices long enough to feel their weight. So why speak now? Because, according to those close to him, there's a difference between defending decisions and living with regret. And Harry is finally doing the second. Here's what makes this story hit harder than ever. Harry isn't just talking about arguments or misunderstandings. He's talking about influence. About how moments of concern from William were reframed as control. How attempts at reconciliation were allegedly recast as attacks. How loyalty was tested again and again until choosing his brother felt like betrayal. Ask yourself this. Have you ever looked back on a relationship and realized you didn't drift away from people? You were slowly steered away? Harry claims that's exactly what happened. Not with ultimatums. Not with dramatic confrontations. But with whispers after meetings. Comments on car rides home. Questions planted gently but persistently. Why did William say that? Why does he always doubt you? Why does he never support us? And then, the most dangerous part. The reassurance. The comfort. The sense of being chosen. You don't need him. You have me. At the time, Harry says it felt like love. Like protection. Like someone finally putting him first. But years later, when the phone stopped ringing, when birthdays passed in silence, when his children grew up without knowing their uncle the way he once did, the cost became impossible to ignore. And according to Harry, the moment it all truly began to unravel wasn't a public feud. It was a phone call. A private call between two brothers. A call that was supposed to heal old wounds. And instead, set the stage for everything that followed. That phone call didn't start with anger. That's the part that still haunts Harry. It started quietly. No shouting. No accusations. Just two brothers. Years of tension hanging between them. Both unsure where to begin. William, according to Harry, sounded careful. Measured. Almost fragile. Not the future king barking orders, but an older brother trying one last time to reach the younger one he felt slipping away. Have you ever noticed how the most important conversations in life rarely sound dramatic at first? Harry says William didn't attack Meghan. He didn't insult her. He didn't demand anything. Instead, he raised concerns. Small ones. About speed. About pressure. About how quickly everything was changing. About Harry himself. Whether he was okay. Whether he was still Harry. And that's where things shifted. Because when Harry shared the details of that call later, the reaction he got wasn't relief. It wasn't understanding. It wasn't curiosity. It was reframing. According to Harry, Meghan didn't hear concern. She heard control. She didn't hear love. She heard threat. And slowly, methodically, she began to translate William's words into something darker. Why is he questioning you? Why does he think he knows better? Why does he always try to make you feel small? Those questions didn't explode. They settled. They lingered. They repeated. Harry admits this is where he began to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but subtly. He started walking into conversations already defensive, already armored, already prepared to fight for someone who, in his mind, was being attacked unfairly. And William felt it. Every attempt to talk felt colder. Every effort to connect felt shorter. Jokes stopped landing. Trust stopped flowing. The easy shorthand they'd built over a lifetime began to crack. Here's the contradiction Harry now struggles with. William was warning him because he cared. Meghan was comforting him because she cared. And Harry couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. So he chose the voice that made him feel strongest in the moment. The one that said, "I see you. I protect you. I won't question you." And each time Harry sided with that voice, another thread between the brothers loosened. He skipped calls, delayed replies, defended decisions without fully explaining them. He convinced himself this was growth. Independence. Breaking free. But independence, Harry now admits, shouldn't feel like isolation. Behind the scenes, moments piled up. Family gatherings grew tense. Eye contact became rare. Conversations became polite. Too polite. The kind of politeness that signals something precious is already slipping away. And still, Harry didn't stop. Because every time doubt crept in, the reassurance returned. You're being manipulated. They don't respect you. They never have. You don't need him. By the time Harry realized how far apart he and William had drifted, he says the distance felt irreversible. Like waking up one morning and realizing the bridge behind you has quietly collapsed. But what Harry didn't understand then was that the real fracture hadn't even happened yet. Because the next moment wouldn't just widen the gap. It would force him to choose sides in a way he could never undo. And once that choice was made, nothing in their family would ever look the same again. The choice Harry says he was forced to make didn't arrive as a demand. It arrived disguised as loyalty. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful ultimatums are never spoken out loud? According to Harry, the shift was subtle but unmistakable. After that phone call with William, the atmosphere changed. Conversations felt weighted. Silence felt louder than words. And then came the sentence that still echoes in his mind years later. You don't need your brother. You only need me. Harry says it wasn't delivered with anger. It was said softly, comfortingly, like reassurance. And that's what made it so dangerous. Think about that for a second. If you've spent your whole life feeling second best, overlooked, compared, and suddenly someone tells you that you are enough on your own, that you don't need anyone else, wouldn't that feel empowering? Harry admits it did. At first. He says the message came in different forms, wrapped in different tones. Sometimes it was encouragement. Sometimes it was protection. Sometimes it was framed as love. But the meaning stayed the same. Every time William questioned something, it was turned into proof that he didn't respect Harry. Every time reconciliation was mentioned, it was framed as surrender. Why go back to people who never supported you? Why reopen wounds? Why let them control you again? Harry says he started repeating those thoughts in his own head, defending them, believing them. And slowly, his brother stopped being a person with concerns and became a symbol of everything he was trying to escape. Here's the contradiction Harry now can't ignore. William never asked him to choose. Not once. But Harry felt like he was choosing anyway. Choosing between peace and conflict. Between comfort and confrontation. Between a relationship that soothed him and one that challenged him. So when William reached out again, when there was another attempt to talk, another opening for repair, Harry hesitated. And hesitation, in families like this, is often louder than rejection. Harry says he remembers standing in a room, phone in hand, knowing that calling his brother back would spark tension at home, knowing that staying silent would be seen as loyalty. And in that moment, he chose silence. That was the night he says something shifted permanently, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't. The call slowed. The distance grew. And Harry began to justify it by telling himself this was strength, boundaries, growth. But here's the question he now asks himself, and the one he wants you to think about too. When does setting boundaries quietly become burning bridges? Because years later, when Harry looks back at that moment, he doesn't remember feeling empowered. He remembers feeling alone, victorious in an argument that no one else knew was happening, and losing something he didn't realize could disappear forever. And according to Harry, the real wake-up call didn't come during an argument or a headline or a public fallout. It came much later, when something happened that made him realize just how much had been lost. And by the time he saw it clearly, the damage was already done. By the time Harry realized something was wrong, the silence had already become normal. That's the part he says scares him the most. Because silence doesn't crash into your life. It settles in, slowly, quietly. Until one day you look around and realize the people who once defined your world are no longer in it. Harry says the moment of clarity didn't arrive during a fight or a headline. It arrived during something far more ordinary. A family milestone. One that should have brought everyone together. A moment where he instinctively reached for his phone and then froze. Who would he call? For years, the answer had always been William. No matter how tense things got, no matter how much pressure surrounded them, his brother was the constant. The one person who understood the weight of their childhood without explanation. And suddenly, that instinct was gone. Harry says that's when it hit him. Not as anger, not as betrayal, but as grief. He began replaying the moments that led there. The calls he didn't return. The conversations he cut short. The times he defended choices without listening to concerns. The way he had slowly accepted a version of events where every bridge back to his family was painted as a threat. And the most painful realization of all, no one ever explicitly told him to cut his brother off. It just happened. Through suggestion, through repetition, through reassurance that sounded like love but functioned like isolation. Harry now admits that in trying to protect his marriage, he may have sacrificed something irreplaceable. And that's not an easy thing to say out loud. Especially when the world has spent years demanding that he choose sides. Here's the uncomfortable truth he's finally facing. Love that demands exclusivity often disguises itself as devotion. But devotion shouldn't require erasing your past, or rewriting your family as villains, or convincing you that the people who raised you are your enemies. Harry says he sees that now, but seeing it doesn't undo it. William moved on. Duty demanded it. Life demanded it. Children grew. Responsibilities multiplied, and the space between them hardened into something neither of them knew how to cross anymore. So why speak now? Because according to Harry, regret doesn't fade with time. It sharpens, especially when you realize the years you can never get back. He says this isn't about blaming Meghan publicly. It's about telling the truth privately, about acknowledging that influence exists, that vulnerability can be exploited, and that even princes can be steered away from the people who love them most. And yet, there's one detail Harry hasn't fully shared. One moment, one final exchange, one realization that made him understand the wedge wasn't just emotional, it was intentional. He says when that memory finally resurfaced, it changed how he saw everything. And if that part is true, then this story isn't over yet. What Harry says he understands now is something most people only realize too late. That love can feel like safety and still cost you everything. When he looks back, he doesn't see villains and heroes the way the public does. He sees moments. Small ones. Quiet ones. Moments where he chose comfort over discomfort. Agreement over tension. Peace at home over honesty with his brother. And at the center of it all, that sentence still echoes. You only need me. At the time, it felt like loyalty. Like devotion. Like finally being chosen first in a life where he had always felt second. But years later, Harry says he finally understands the price of that kind of reassurance. Because real love doesn't shrink your world. It expands it. And his world got smaller. No brother to call instinctively. No shared laughter over old memories. No easy shorthand that only two people who survived the same childhood could ever understand. Just distance. Formality. A relationship frozen in the past while life moved forward without it. Here's the part that hurts the most. Harry says there were moments when reconciliation was still possible. Moments when a single honest conversation could have changed the trajectory of everything. But each time, doubt crept in. Each time, he questioned motives instead of intentions. Each time, he told himself it was better to let sleeping dogs lie. And that's how years disappear. Not with explosions. With postponements. Now, at 41, Harry isn't asking for sympathy. He's asking for understanding. For people to recognize how easily influence works when you're vulnerable. How quickly love can become an echo chamber when it demands exclusivity. How family fractures don't always come from hatred, but from fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of abandonment. Fear of losing the one person who feels like your safe place. The irony is impossible to ignore. In trying to protect his marriage, Harry may have lost the one relationship that would have survived anything else. And the question he keeps circling back to is one he can't answer yet. If William called tomorrow, would either of them know what to say? That's the real tragedy here. Not headlines. Not interviews. Not sides. But the silence that follows when too much time has passed and pride has hardened into distance. So let me ask you something. Have you ever looked back at a moment where you chose peace in the present and paid for it in the future? Do you believe influence can cross the line into manipulation without either person fully realizing it at the time? And most importantly, do you think broken family bonds can ever truly be repaired once years of silence set in? Because Harry's story isn't just about royalty. It's about all of us. And if he's finally telling the truth now, the next question is unavoidable. Is it too late for reconciliation, or is the hardest conversation still waiting to happen?